Hey everybody, welcome to a review of Thimbleweed Park. I'm your host, Matthew Falva. You can find me on Twitter at GameThinkTalk, and this is...
Matthew Owen. You can find me at SuperGamecast64.
Great. Thimbleweed Park, people have probably heard about it. Retro adventure throwback. Is this a game that is only for people that want that throwback? People that have played those games and thought, they're frustrating, the puzzles are stupid. Is there something here for the modern gamer that has never played an adventure game before?
So I just posted my review on a90skid.com, and that was one of the big caveats I wanted to give to readers so they understand. Adventure games haven't outright died over the past few years, but they've evolved into something different. Now you have these kind of tailored stories you see from Telltale and stuff like that. You don't really have the obnoxious amount of items, sometimes the pixel hunty kind of puzzles to solve. And to that point, this game, Thimbleweed Park, is very much like a Maniac Mansion or a Day of the Tentacle, where those tropes, those kind of sometimes illogical puzzles and things, they're very much there. Although there are flaws, some of those things are kind of very much needed to bring back the true life of what it felt to play a 1987 point-and-click game. To that, though, they did try to modernize it a little bit. When you immediately start the game, they give you a casual and a hard mode. Okay. To people who have played point-and-clicks for a while, hard mode is just the normal game. What casual mode does is it takes out I don't want to call them fluff puzzles, but it takes out extra puzzles that might be a little bit too difficult, a lot of the multi-step puzzles that involve multiple characters at once. Also, what they've done is in each character's inventory, because you do have multiple characters that you play as in this game, there's a little to-do list thing. And clicking on that at any given point will tell you the overall objectives of each character at that given point in the story, and whether or not you have completed it. So it won't tell you, like, go to this exact place and do this, but it'll say, hey, you need to go talk to this person. So that way, it lends itself to a more, I would say, modern progression that you can always check. There's no mini-map or anything like that. There's no big old arrow saying, go here. It's very much old school, but there's a slight blend to bring newcomers in that I think will be very much appreciated for those who haven't played these kind of games. But this game, at its core, is for people who grew up with the 1980s LucasArts adventure games like Monkey Island, Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle, Sam & Max, those kind of games. It's very much for those kind of people first and foremost, and the newcomers very secondary.
So with on this simplistic mode, do you think a newcomer who had never played a puzzle game, do you think that they would have any fun in here? Say they've played The Walking Dead Season 1 or a Telltale game and they want to explore back there. Do you think that they could find something here to enjoy?
So what Thimbleweed Park does, especially on the casual mode, because for my playthrough, I actually did casual mode, because I wanted to see, it's been a while since I've gone through these crazy difficult point and click games, so I wanted to see what kind of experience they had. And to that point, I feel like when you play old PC point and click adventures, you'll get stuck almost every 15 to 20 minutes. There'll always be that 5 minutes you're spending going, what do I do here? I'm trying to really think about all the different things I have, and I never really found that in Thimbleweed Park. Once again, I'm playing on casual mode. There were some difficult parts at which it took me a few minutes where I was like, oh, I gotta think this through. But for the most part, the puzzles on casual mode are very to the point. You know, they'll require a little bit of out-of-the-box thinking, but nothing super crazy that oftentimes you heard people say, oh, I was really playing this point and click and I couldn't figure it out. I walked away, came back the next day, and it popped. And that's because it takes time for your brain to really think of all the possibilities. Whereas a lot of the casual puzzles in Thimbleweed Park, on that casual mode, don't require that much thinking. Walking Dead and a lot of other Telltale games aren't just simple linear storytelling. I mean, most of it is dialogue and stuff like that. But there is some item collection, if I remember right, there's some item collection or at least some light puzzle solving. And I would say that Thimbleweed Park is probably about doubly difficult when it comes to those kind of puzzles, but you're never going to see anything on casual mode that's super ridiculous, that's a pixel hunt kind of thing, or anything that will really stop you for any long period of time in which you'll feel cheated. So I think in that way, casual mode does, although it's a bit of a gouged experience because you're missing out on 50% of the puzzles, and it's a point-and-click adventure. The puzzles are part of the gameplay. So even though you're missing out on 50% of the puzzles, what casual mode does is it gives you the story in a very easy to digest way, and it feels like the story itself is more of the focus, and the puzzles are there just to, be part of the gameplay. Whereas the hard mode, it's very much about doing all of the puzzles, and the story is just, it's the story. But casual mode, definitely story intensive. Hard mode is for your old school people. So I think that newcomers, if they're going to try Thimbleweed, need to play it on casual. It's a short run. If you don't have too many issues, you might beat it in 5 or 6 hours, and you can always go back and you can try that hard mode. And even then, you'll have a basis of knowledge about where you're supposed to go. So I think the option of having 2 modes really helped out in this entire situation.
In terms of replayability, are there any branching options are there alternate choices for dialogue, or is it strictly linear?
So, like old adventure games, a lot of dialogue is done with these weird characters, and there is a lot of fun. You look at a game like Mass Effect Andromeda, where oftentimes you have... Well, I'm just talking about Mass Effect because it's the last game that really came out that was very, very dialogue heavy, and we talked about the script quite a bit. It's a game where there's a bunch of dialogue options, Mass Effect that is, but a lot of them just lead to exposition or things that are ho-hum. Whereas Thimbleweed Park, almost every single line of dialogue or expansive branch of the dialogue tree will have a joke. It'll have some sort of haha moment or something that is actually integral to the story. Unlike Mass Effect, no dialogue ever seems frivolous or wasted or just there. This is a small team of people. The dude who wrote the script, Ron Gilbert, he's been working in the industry for 30 years. He knows how to make a proper script that's funny. To that point, as far as replayability, there's not a ton. The reason I started on casual mode is because I knew I would want to play this game again. So playing through casual mode is kind of a primer, and then going back through hard mode, I know I'm going to have new experiences, new puzzles, while still being able to play the same game. So in that way, the 2 difficulties are really the main reason to keep going back. There's not too much extra stuff. There's no extra endings or anything like that. There are several things in the game, maybe about 3 or 4 different... I don't want to call them puzzle streams, but little things you can do that are kind of inconsequential to the story and really are only there for a joke. But for the most part, Thimbleweed, in all of its exploration and non-linearity, once you've gone through the story, you kind of seen what they had to tell. There's little things you'll pick up, and there's a lot of really cool features that can be time sinks. But as far as true replayability, there's not a bunch of branching paths. Once you've beaten the game, unless you feel like going back and playing on the harder difficulty, or you start on the harder difficulty, there's not a ton of stuff besides collectibles that you'll need to go for.
Okay, now, in terms of the story, obviously you want to avoid spoilers. How engaging is that? Where would you rank that among sort of common games? I know you spoke pretty highly of the dialogue not being wasteful, being very efficient, but the overall story arc, people going to be pretty satisfied with that, or is this more of get in here for the puzzles and the story is middling?
So that's the thing, is that I originally, when it comes to games like Day of the Tentacle, which I even have a tattoo of Day of the Tentacle, it's one of my favorite games of all time, the puzzles there were the fun part, okay? Like, there was a part in Day of the Tentacle in which you meet up with the forefathers writing the Constitution, and you have to figure out a way to make them write in some silly law, and so the puzzle itself is kind of the joke. Now, Thimbleweed isn't necessarily a super, it is very weird, but it's kind of a Twin Peaks kind of weird. The idea is Thimbleweed Park is a population of 81 people until there's a man murdered at the bottom of the bridge, okay? You start off as these 2 federal agents who are investigating the crime, but they have their own kind of motivations for being there, albeit, dark and secretive. They're not just there to investigate the body, but that starts as the forefront of the story. There is a town that's super weird. All the inhabitants of it are super not off-putting, but they're oddballs. And you're trying to find out who killed this guy. Very quickly, you're introduced to 3 or 4 more characters who are not the federal agents. They're people who have been in Thimbleweed Park, and they have their own stories to tell. So in that way, the main focus for quite a bit of the game, I would say the first half of it, is on solving this murder, getting the evidence proper. But when you start to delve into these other storylines, we have super inventive things like Ransom the Insult Clown, who has been... his whole shtick is that he was cursed and now has to walk the circus grounds for the rest of his life. You have Dolores, who wants to become a video game designer, and her whole entire thing is like, you gotta grab an application and apply at these game designing companies. And then you have something as weird as a ghost who wants to just go to the afterlife, but you have to accomplish his ghostly things. So on one part, it's a murder mystery, and on another part, it's like an eclectic collection of a bunch of weird characters and their personal stories. But the thing the story does, and the entire narrative does very well, is those stories all start very separate from themselves. You know, you'll play as the clown, and you're not doing anything about the murders. You're doing your own thing. But as the game wraps up, all the storylines intertwine, and they become a very, very, very cool ending. And the way that they were able to intertwine the story streams and kind of all lock them together in a very satisfying ending is what makes the story so good, I think.
Now, you were telling me earlier about fourth wall breaking, and
yes,
this seemed to have impacted you quite a bit. So this is done pretty well. Is there any chance it might turn anyone off? Is there any chance that it could be immersion breaking in any way, or is it handled pretty well?
So from the get-go, to say it would be an immersion breaking would insinuate that there's immersion from the get-go. Now, This game is immersive, but the fourth wall breaks are not one-offs. In reference to a very, very recently released game we talked about, Yooka-Laylee. There's a part in that game where the main character, or the main antagonist, is like, to continue the game, you'll have to wait 12 hours or spend $2 on premium coins. Like, that's an obvious fourth wall break making a joke. But those in Yooka-Laylee are so far and few in between that, you know, they're just funny when they pop up. Thimbleweed Park starts off right out of the gate with fourth wall breaks. Within the first 5 minutes, after you're done with the initial crime scene, you come up to this group of pigeons, and I'm going to say this isn't spoilers because this is the first 5 minutes of the game. You come up to a group of pigeons. They're actually not pigeons. They're two plumbers, okay? And they're dressed in pigeon outfits. And as you're talking to them, they're being super weird and super kind of creepy. And a dialogue option pops up, and the main character goes, I've played a lot of adventure games. I feel like I should save right now. And then the pigeon says, no, don't worry. You can go anywhere without the fear of dying or anything, so explore at your own will. And then to that, the main character goes, yeah, because I remember adventure games having a lot of, you know, dead ends and deaths. And then the pigeon goes on to tell you about how, well, originally that's how games were until Monkey Island, where game developers decide, and it's like this very weird commentary on adventure games. Almost every 5 minutes, someone's bringing up the idea of an adventure game trope, or especially with things like Dolores, the girl who wants to become the game programmer. They don't pull the punches. She's actually trying to apply at a company called Mucus Phlegm, which is a direct joke on Lucasfilms. They constantly reference Sierra Online. There's even the collectibles are a joke in themselves. If you remember point-and-click adventure games, there was often the times where people would complain that it was something called a pixel hunt. To solve a puzzle, you would have to find, you know, a very small sector on the screen that was interactable. There were known as pixel hunts because it's just, you can't find it. It's so difficult to find a singular pixel. And as a joke, the collectibles in the game are literal specks of dust. They're single pixels that you pick up. And it seems like the game isn't necessarily using fourth wall breaking as a platform of a joke, but a platform on which to base the entire tone of the game. It's very tongue-in-cheek. It's very self-referential. And it's not just a joke. Avoiding spoilers, the whole self-referential and self-awareness is something that comes up in the story to big degrees of change. So it's fourth wall breaking is just as much a thing in Thimbleweed Park as it is in like Deadpool, the film Deadpool.
I think it works pretty well for this genre because the original adventure games themselves, they took a lot of liberties with the fourth wall. There was one I'd played where you're a pharmacist in the Old West, and the very first thing you grab, they give you like a ludicrous amount of points, and they say you've beaten half the game. You're 5 minutes in. So and that's interesting. So does it feel in a way like you're playing with the creator commentary on, but they're just sort of speaking to you through the characters?
Yeah, I'm going to avoid spoilers, but the developers are very, very, they very much want to know want you to know that this is a Ron Gilbert and Gary Winnick game. At a certain point, about 3/4 of the way through the game, I won't spoil anything, they make it so apparent they want you to know, hey, my name is Ron Gilbert, my name is Gary Winnick, we made this game, and that's what we're doing. They're so focused on that fact that it plays such a big part in the game. I mean, it's
not detrimental.
No, and it's weird because oftentimes I have an issue. I literally just reviewed a film, an indie film, where I docked points because I said that the script itself serviced the idea of the writer and not the game. And what Thimbleweed Park does is it's like you said, it's like having developer commentary on, but you know when the developer's talking, because a lot of those cheeky, like, one-offs towards, this or that, or a lot of the dialogue, the funny dialogue, is very, very much the developer's joke. There's a very solid narrative here, so you never feel like, oh, they're just kind of doing it as a joke. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you put it perfectly. It's like playing with developer commentary on, except the developer and the writers know how to put themselves in the game without it feeling cheap or feeling intrusive or breaking any sort of immersion you might have.
So it sounds like a pretty glowing review. What did you end up giving this?
I ended up giving it a 9 out of 10, but once again, that comes very strong. Much like Yooka-Laylee, it comes very strong with the caveat of you must enjoy this game. To that point, I would say that more so even than Yooka-Laylee, Thimbleweed knows it's a backed Kickstarter game. They reference Kickstarter multiple times, and they really celebrate the fact that it was a Kickstarter game. One last thing I'll say about this game, and it's something that blew me away, and I really want to go back and look at it. So Dolores herself, the character, she lives in a big mansion. It's kind of a callback to the Maniac Mansion. And in that mansion, there is a library, a very, very large library. Think Beauty and the Beast's library. And as I started to scroll over the titles, there was tons, hundreds and hundreds of titles. I was like, that's weird. So I click, look at book. And on a big Post-it note, when you see the little book pop up on your screen, on a big Post-it note, it says, all of these books were written by our backers, and the content is on them. And at that point I go, oh, really? And I started walking, and the library just goes for a while, but every single book is interactable, and it's all a 1 or 2 page short story written by a backer. It's even it's separated into like the Dewey Decimal System. So like 1.5 is all things that are about business. But it's so cool to be able to, at any point, just walk into the library, click somewhere randomly, and you're now looking at a piece of text that one of the 17,000 backers put in the game. Wow. And that's there, and for a modern game to say, hey, people who want to buy our game, write anything you want and we'll put it in the game. Mm-hmm. You'll never see that in 2017. I don't want to say never, but you'll probably not see it in 2017. But the fact that Thimbleweed embraces so much that it's a game for the fans, that they'll include over 100 different fan-written, books, it goes to show that they're thinking of their primary audience first and foremost. Anything else, any extra sales besides the 17,000 backers, it's just extra for them. And in the end of the credits, they say, please tell your friends to buy this game so we can not have normal jobs and keep making games. But thanks first and foremost to our 17,000 backers. They're 100% on board with pleasing their primary audience and not really trying to make qualms if newcomers don't like it. So yeah, it's a game for those. If you grew up with a 1990s PC or a 1980s PC and you like point and click adventure games, that's what you're getting. That's exactly what you're getting.
That's a really nice use of the Kickstarter and involvement of the community, because I was a big fan of the Shadowrun series that was kickstarted again by Harebrained Schemes.
Excellent Kickstarter.
Yeah, if you haven't played those, Dragonfall is amazing. I think Returns is pretty good. And Hong Kong, I thought, missed the mark. But one of the problems is that the Kickstarter goals for the several thousand, you get your face in the game, and I feel it's quite obvious when you're looking at the NPCs. All of a sudden, it's all right. Here's some guy from Dakota, and and I like that. In the same way they did the pixel hunt for the collectibles, they acknowledged that, pixel hunting for the main line of the game is not fun, but if it's for a fun collectible, that's okay, because it's just this completely off the side. It's not going to punish you if you don't engage with it. So I like that this is hidden, and this is something that you don't have to spend any time. There's no puzzle that says find the 53rd book or anything. This is just purely for the enjoyment of it.
Well, and to that point, actually, I was playing on casual mode, and there was a point at which I think there was a hard mode puzzle that involved going to the library.
Oh, crap.
But from the casual mode, the library purely exists to contain 2 little scenes. But beyond that, it's just a love letter to the entire thing. There's also a little computer that you can search on if you know the book you're looking for.
Okay.
So that's cool too. So that people who backed the game and got that in there, they don't have to search through 200 different little books. It's and I gotta tell you too, some of the comedy in there, even though it's all user generated, some of it is very, very topical, political. Some of it's just straight garbage. It's all across the wall, but it's a very, very cool experience, and one that I was it was something so unique, and I was like, wow, that's so cool and so thoughtful to their audience, and it was a great experience as a player too, who didn't back the game originally. I thought it was a really, really cool nod to their supporters.
So we'll see some rejected skits from SNL, the writers that were frustrated they didn't get their sketch on the weekly show. Well, Matt, thank you for talking to us about Thimbleweed Park. Sounds like you highly recommend it. If people want to read a bit more, you can check out 90skid.com. The review is there. You can find me on Twitter at GameThinkTalk. And Matt?
Yep, you can find me at SuperGamecast64, and if you like listening to my voice, iTunes or Stitcher has my podcast, once again, Super Gamecast 64.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. If you liked it, please share it with somebody. It helps. Bye for now.
So tell me again why you're here.
I was assigned to the case by the Home Office in Albuquerque.
There is no home office in Albuquerque.
It's neat to know.
Earlier this evening, we found a body down by the bridge.
I don't remember calling the Federinos.
Was the money deposited into my account like we agreed?
I think it's time we came clean and told the truth about why we're in Thimbleweed Park.
You first.